So continuing on with the topic that Linda and I have been speaking to this week, the topic of ambition. So truthfully, I haven't thought that much about ambition until we came upon this topic. So some of my thoughts are newish or half-formed. So hopefully you'll, in your minds, help form them. So ambition begins with intention. Maybe most things that we do begin with intention. Now, of course, not all intentions are going to lead to ambition. And of course, intention is necessary. And also what sort of needs to follow intention, which is the kind of effort or energy to carry that intention forward, also necessary. Both are on the Eightfold Path, which in Buddhism is the path to awakening. Really, intention gives our life direction, hopefully a positive direction. Could go the other way, or everything in between. And effort or energy gives us sort of the steam to move our intention forward. Now, of course, not all intentions are skillful, and of course, not all, or maybe most, ambition is harmful. But let's track some of the trajectories. Now, I'd say ambition is not often or usually chosen consciously. It sort of just starts kind of happening, but maybe the expectation primarily might start out from the people or the culture around you or that you grew up in. When I was growing up, the main statement, although it was mostly for boys at the time, was to become a doctor. There's lots of ambition there. And through that ambition, like I said, it was more the boys who took that route. And there are many conditions in the culture I grew up in at the time I grew up that led to this hope or expectation or ambition, really too many to address now. In the late 1980s, I worked at San Francisco General Hospital for the AIDS Health Project. And I worked with healthcare. One of my jobs was working with healthcare workers after they'd had a needle stick. Now, that was a quirky job. I'm not sure too many people have had it, but it sort of grew out of the whole thing. My job description grew out of the fact that a dedicated young nurse on the outpatient AIDS ward had a needle stick and had seroconverted to having HIV, which was quite a shock to the people around her and the system itself. And so they created my job. Now, back then, we didn't really know how dangerous needle sticks were. And we didn't know if the AZT that we offered after a needle stick would really help. I think it turned out it probably didn't. But what I knew, I don't know how many other people were thinking about this, but I knew that the interns who came to me often had needle sticks closer to the end of a very long work shift. And I think back then it was like 48 hours. I can't quite remember. And at the time, and even now, it seems inhumane to me. But now as I reflect on it, it also kind of sort of set up some of the conditions for ambition and something else I'll speak to, this feeling of being better than, or this self being created, this superior sense of self. So then when does intention become ambition? When does ambition itself morph into something that is harmful? As Linda said a couple of days ago, ambition can be helpful. It can be a motivator that can help people learn, grow, and achieve things. For example, many of the advances in science, technology, and medicine can be attributed to ambitious people striving to achieve their goals. Back to my own words, and I bet some of the doctors I saw during my time after working with them after they'd had a needle stick went on to do many great things. And fortunately, I think it turns out most of them did not get HIV from the needle stick. So one way ambition becomes dangerous is when it starts building this sense of self, or should I say too much self. That's a tricky word or phrase, too much self. But what I mean is, for example, when it morphs from a doctor having given an accurate diagnosis and effective treatment to being a very special person, really much better than most other people, or bringing it closer to home. When a Dharma teacher morphs from having given a good Dharma talk or a spot-on interview to becoming someone extra special, perhaps who is let off the hook when crossing ethical lines. Another way ambition can become harmful to the person who's ambitious, that is when it leads to burnout. When that ambition pushes us or them to do more than we can do with the internal and external resources available to us. So, of course, that's a whole other area of exploration. What are the internal and external resources available? But burnout, perhaps, is a little more easy to discern. So, like most things, there's no clear line when ambition becomes harmful, or shall we say, full of self or full of ego. That's how the common language is. Though it does behoove us, I believe, to be mindful when we start to discern ambition in ourselves and others. Not that it's harmful, but it could be ripe for losing sight of conditions. It could be ripe for believing that I alone or they alone allowed this something to happen, to come to be. This is a root of harmful ambition. So then bringing it even closer to home, what we do together, we sit in meditation, we become more aware of what's going on in our inner world. We become more aware of our intentions. We become more aware, hopefully, maybe of our ambitions, but we cultivate awareness for whatever's going on right then when it's going on, what's commonly called in the present moment, as well as later on in reflection. And there really is, I'd say, a lot to reflect upon when we feel a surge of ambition, because it comes back to whether this ambition is harmful to ourselves or to others. Once again, there we are back at ethics, which I believe to be the foundation of Buddhism and hopefully the foundation of mindfulness. So with that, I will end the talk, and we will sit in meditation, or you can lie in meditation if you'd like, but we'll meditate, and we will hopefully become aware of a bit more about what's going on in our inner world.